Hi, everyone. This is Tony Strite. I am the president of the board of Namely, and so thrilled to be with you at this 2022 conference. We are loving all the activity that's going on and the leveling up that we're all participating in. Today's been a great day, but we have more to come in the next sessions. The one that you're participating in now, this keynote, is one that is in fact a series, a lessons from leaders that we thought would be a great way to talk about some of the critical themes that intersect with media literacy and are on the national landscape. And so in just a few minutes, we're going to have a conversation about civic education, how it, like media literacy, is becoming so critical in our nation, and we're excited to be a part of that conversation. But first, I have some housekeeping duties to do, and I'm going to share my screen here with you. Super important is is that the right slide? Here's the right slide. First, we want to really encourage you to follow along the conference on Twitter. There's all sorts of posts going on, so if you can get in there and help participate with us, we would love that. The more that we can push out content on social media, the more we can draw in other folks in the field. Also, we wanted to let you know that there is this fantastic program that the team has put together that you can download in PDF form. Please take a moment to look through it. It has all the sessions. It has background on the speakers and recognition of our incredible sponsors. The other thing I just wanted to remind folks, as we've been doing in many of our sessions, of our community standards. And so please honor these as we move along. So before we get in to this keynote session, though, we're going to take another opportunity to present a Media Literacy Award. And to do that, I'm going to pass this over to my fellow board member and great friend, Michael Fregali from the Corporation for Public Broadcasting. Michael.
Hi, Tony. Thank you very much. And hi, everyone. It is my honor to present one of this year's Namely Media Awards in recognition and celebration of significant contributions to the field of media literacy education. Today's recipient, the PBS Media Literacy Education Certification by KQED, is an outstanding example of a resource that promotes media literacy skills by giving educators from across the country and in all disciplines the opportunity to demonstrate their expertise in teaching pre-K through 12th grade students to think critically about their roles as media literacy consumers and creators, and it's free. The program is the only national competency-based certification on media literacy, and it aligns with Namely's definition, the ability to access, analyze, evaluate, create, and act using all forms of communication. And did I mention it was free? One teacher has said that it's the most valuable professional development I've participated in. It's made me a better educator, and my students have benefited from the skills and insights I've gained from my involvement. Joining us to accept the award are Rick Panganiban, Online Learning Manager for KQED Teach, and Kristen Lehner, Senior Director, Content and Curriculum for PBS Learning Media. Congratulations to both of you.
Thank you so much, Michael. Again, I'm Kristen from PBS Learning Media.
Yeah, and I'm Rick Panganiban from KQED in the San Francisco Bay Area, holding this extremely heavy award that we are so honored to receive.
Yes, we are super honored to receive this award from Namely. Both of our organizations, PBS and KQED, believe that it is a very important job of public media to encourage students to develop the media literacy skills they need to both evaluate and analyze the media they consume, and to make their voices heard on issues that matter to them. And one of the ways we do it is by providing a learning pathway for educators to develop those skills for themselves first, and to get recognized for that through this PBS Media Literacy Educator Certification by KQED. So far, 650 teachers have taken steps on the certification pathway, and nearly 100 have become fully certified media literacy educators. And we are delighted that other organizations have also adopted this program and are bringing it to their teacher communities, like member stations WSKG in Binghamton, New York, and Idaho PBS, both of whom you can hear from directly during our 3:30 p.m. session tomorrow, as well as Montana PBS, PBS Wisconsin, and many others. And school districts are doing the same, like West Contra Costa County and San Francisco Unified.
But of course, the most gratifying thing about being involved in this program is the feedback that we've received from teachers who've gotten fully certified. And we just wanted to share you a couple of quotes that exemplify this. So this tech integration specialist wrote to us that this certification has made me more aware of all aspects of media literacy and the importance of modeling these literacies to the teachers and students that I work with. A Spanish teacher shared that they realized that they needed a personal upgrade, especially in technology and media education, and they feel more prepared to inspire, instruct, and guide students one step at a time to also be media literate. So really, that is why we do this. We really invite you to learn more about this program at kqed.org/certification. And I think you can also see that in the chat. And you can learn more about this program later this weekend. We'll be speaking tomorrow on Saturday at 3:30 p.m. and then this Sunday at 1 p.m. Eastern time. And again, thank you on behalf of PBS and KQED.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, Michael, and thank you and congratulations, Kristen and Rick. So great to have you with us tonight. So now it's my great pleasure to introduce the facilitator of this Lesson from Leaders discussion, my colleague from the board and our Vice President, Kimberly Moffett. She is the Dean of the College of Arts, Humanities, and Social Science and Professor of Language, Literature, and Cultural Doctoral Program. Wow. At the University of Maryland, Baltimore County. Kimberly, great to see you, and I am very, very much looking forward to this conversation.
Always good to see you too, Tony. Thanks so much. I am honored to have the opportunity to serve as moderator for today's session, Lessons from Leaders, specifically about civic education. And today we will hear from Louise Dubé, who is the Executive Director of iCivics. She is coming to us as the director of that organization, which is the largest provider in the nation. iCivics champions and reimagines what civic education looks like. It is also, iCivics is also the winner of many awards, including Fast Company's top 10 most innovative education companies, the John D. and Catherine T. MacArthur Foundations Award for Creative and Effective Institutions, and EdTech Creator winner from Unity. Previously, Louise served as the Managing Director of Digital Learning at WGBH, where she helped launch PBS Learning Media, a platform reaching over 1.5 million educators. I am looking forward to today's chat. And thank you so much for being with us, Louise. And I will allow you to start by just simply sharing with us. Talk to us about what matters to you in regards to the work that you are currently doing and how can we help?
Wow, first of all, it's a great pleasure to be here and with the NAMLE community and all the great educators that are doing really important work right now. As you said, I am the Executive Director of iCivics. I thought I'd start actually by telling you just a little bit about iCivics and the story of iCivics and how it has evolved. So let me just start by sharing my screen here, which I hope you're seeing. Voila. So many of you know that we were founded by Justice Sandra Day O'Connor over 10 years ago. And many of you may know us from our games, including our media literacy game, Newsfeed Defenders, which we're very proud of. We have 15 of those role-playing games, and we also have a lot of content, over 230 lesson plans, and everything we do is free from grades 4 to 12. We've grown quite big in that time frame. We reach over 9 million students a year, 140,000 educators in all 50 states. We think it's about half of the of students in the country in those grades. And we do particularly focus on civics deserts where there's not availability of civic learning experiences in those states. But I think the story that you're interested in and you want to know about really started in 2017. That is the time that Justice O'Connor was really taking a step back. You might remember that she told the nation that she had Alzheimer's and couldn't carry the torch for the field of civic education anymore. And that is the time when we no longer could rely on her and her stature and her amazing results orientation. And we decided that what we were doing wasn't enough anymore, that we needed to band with other people to try to impact the amount of civic education that's happening in the country. That's really been the problem for civic education. The civic mission of schools, or what was at the core of why we have schools to start with, was kind of frittering away. We've invested $50 in STEM education at the federal level. It's just one measure, but only 5 cents in civic education. I'll be honest, we consider ourselves, civic education, to be media literacy. There's not really any light between those two things. You cannot run a democracy without knowing the truth. So that's really important. I just want to make sure you understand that your community and ours, it's one. We want to link arms with you, and we want to help you as much as possible. So at that point, we founded civicsnow.org, 222 organizations devoted to changing the game, to advocating for a much more robust role in K-12 education for history and civics. In order to have what you need to have a roadmap for our new democracy. If the democracy is not functioning in the way that people are happy about, we need to know how to do that. And that is what we did. And we created with our partners at Harvard and Tufts and ASU and 300 other people, we created the roadmap for educating for American democracy. That is the anchor for everything that we do going forward. With that, this is the growth of our Civics Now Coalition. Lots and lots of other people have joined us across a plurality of points of view. We are deeply devoted to being an open forum to a plurality of points of view. That's what we believe democracy is about. And we are now advocating for the Civics Secures Democracy Act, a federal bill that would call for $1 billion investment in history and civics education. And we are deeply honored that you guys are in with us on that. We were successful at reintroducing it with more Republican support. It's a bipartisan bill. We reintroduced it in June in the Senate. And we have work happening at the federal level, at the state level as well. I'm not going to dwell on it. I'm going to go back, stop sharing, just wanting you to know what we're doing and how our faiths are linked. deep influence.
Louise, if I can, I've got a few questions that I wanted to share with you. And the first one that we wanted to talk about is, how do you see civic education and media literacy working together?
Right. So I think in civic education, we have roughly the same problem that media literacy has, which is that civic education could be in every discipline, right? You could have an issue that involves budgeting, that could be a math issue, you could have a science issue around climate change that has civic implications, you could have it all over English language arts. The issue is that there are fundamental skills, knowledge, and disposition that need to be taught to students. And those things need an anchor. So we believe that the anchor for that is social studies. And we believe that that should, in fact, include media literacy skills all over. So it's, I think, the same thing. We need to have more time in the classroom, more dedicated resources, better capacity building, and better training opportunities for our educators, and so that there's a base for it. And then we need to link arms and say, okay, let's train our kids. So in that way, I see it very much being the same thing.
And as a follow-up, because we've got some participants who are already asking questions about this topic, and I think this is a nice segue into his question, where he says, I see that media literacy is only mentioned in one line in the Civic Secures Democracy Act bill. Shouldn't media literacy be a much more prominent component of the bill, since democracy cannot survive if the population is not able to decipher facts from conspiracy theories and media?
Yeah, we certainly agree that truth is the cornerstone of a democracy.
Absolutely.
So I think we have to come back to the federal role in education, right? The federal role in education is quite limited, and it's limited to ensuring that there is a baseline of equitable funding for all students across the nation. Our bill is a federalist system, is a federalist bill. Most of what it calls for has nothing to do with prescription or nothing in the bill has anything to do with very specific ideas about what should be taught. That is just not the role of the federal government. The bill's money, $600 million of the $1 billion, goes directly by formula to the states. At that point, the states can do whatever they want that's related to the money that was allocated to them, right? So at that point, if the state wants to do media literacy put more emphasis on media literacy as part of a history and civics curriculum, that's great. Yeah. There's absolutely no prevention. Most of what this is about is buying capacity and buying time within the classroom and resources for social studies educators who have been given very little over the last several decades. So this is reestablishing some amount of balance there. Even with the bill, even if the bill were to pass with $1 billion, you're still only at $18 for students versus STEM $50, right? So we love STEM. That has nothing to do with that.
Right.
It's a question of when we had Sputnik and when we decided that we needed to be a competitive nation in STEM, we put money in STEM. Now we need to be competitive as a democracy in the world. Right? We need to put money behind that. That includes media literacy, that includes basic civic knowledge, that includes a whole lot of other things. And that's what we're trying to do with this bill.
And so, I mean, because I think this is really interesting, the focus on social studies in particular. So what role do you see individual educators playing in this movement building? How have you engaged with educators to help your movement grow?
Oh, wow. Educators are everything. Is there a movement without educators?
There should not be.
No, right, exactly. So, so we at iCivics have a significant population of educators. Our educators have been involved in making the case for Civic Secures Democracy Act with their representatives and their senators. It's been a beautiful thing. It's so, so powerful when an educator can say, hey, listen, this is what I do in my classroom. Look at my kids. Some of the educators brought their kids. It was really wonderful. So this is not it's not scary stuff, right? This is about how to tell which level of government you should go to in order to advocate for a particular issue. This is about media literacy, but the educators really carry the message best. They are our best messengers. They're wonderful, dedicated people. We've invested in them. We've held trainings for our educators about how to advocate and how to be effective communicators for this work. So I think the whole movement is just educators. So.
And I noted as you were giving opening remarks, you talked about having greater bipartisan support for this act. And I am curious, especially for those who are in the classrooms, on the ground, having these types of conversations, what role, if any, does political ideology kind of creep in and cause discomfort, depending on the community it's happening in, of what type of civics education is being talked about?
Yeah, I think it's a really tough time. It's a very tough time for educators right now. We know that civic education, media literacy, all of those issues are under attack, that they are become politicized. I think what we want to remember is that as Americans, and our founding documents, our core roots is to encourage debate and include a diversity and a plurality of points of view. Once you get away from that, right, then you really are not fulfilling your mission in the classroom. Now, I know that there are many places or there's language in legislature that might limit that. And I think what we have to do is to stand together as educators and really call for a plurality of points of view. There's not one answer. There's not one answer for the whole country. There's not even one answer in one classroom. People will differ, and that is the point of democracy. We need to talk together, but I definitely recognize that this is a very, very tough time. My suggestion would be link arms with your communities, because that is where we're going to find the solution between the community and the school and the classroom. Once that starts to fray, then I think you're going to find light, and it becomes a very difficult environment for educators to teach in. We need to bring that back together. We need to take the time to make that happen, so we can get back to doing the job that we were paid to do, which is to educate students. We really need to be careful to promote a diversity of points of view. Ours itself is not the answer, right? It is a diversity. And most of what I see in educators is that incredible commitment to doing that. So I want to honor people who are doing this hard work every day.
And at the same time, I think this is piggybacking off of the earlier question that was raised in the Q&A. How then because I agree with you that we do need the plurality of perspectives, and that's the beauty of a place like America. But what do we do, especially tied largely to what we're doing with media literacy? What do we do with disinformation and that information that is not factual, but seems to have permeated the very spaces that we're saying is where civics lives?
Yeah, so that can't be tolerated. You must fight against disinformation. Fact is fact, and we really, it's really just not possible to run a country without that. I was married once to someone, and we couldn't agree on facts, and that marriage didn't last. So there you go. It's not possible to do. So that's one. But the way to do that is to link arms, right? So I do think there is a increasing role for educators to band together to say what's true. And I think it's going to need a lot of courage. It's unfortunately putting educators in very tough spots, but it's going to take a lot of courage.
And so Louise, the same thing with that you're talking about with educators and linking arms and being there to support each other. Is that the same advice or strategy that's recommended for organizations that could be targeted as well, justifiably or inappropriately, around the stances that they may take politically? Like, how are organizations like us, like Namely, supposed to navigate those waters?
Yeah, it's really tough. And I note that your beautiful background and the theme of your conference is to level up. And I think that's what the moment calls for. It is the moment when organizations need to actually stand up and link arms with others to stand for the truth and to get as big a coalition as possible, as very much representing core fundamental values and texts even of our republic. So that is what matters. We need to get back to a place where people understand that debate and talking to people we disagree with based on facts is in fact exactly what democracy is, right? And in order to do that, we do need to join up organization with organization, educator with educator, but as big a coalition as possible to make that point. Because there are headwinds, right? And we need force.
Yeah.
We need to stand for what has always been conservative, fundamental American principles of government and self-government.
So can you talk about in all that iCivics is doing, what have you learned and experienced from your failures as well as your accomplishments?
Well, first of all, I'll say that leveling up and getting the skills and resources that you need is not an easy task.
Right.
So I'm not gonna lie.
No, absolutely.
It's been really hard. So we started in 2017. It took us a long time. We hired a senior director of advocacy and policy, Sean Healy, only about a year and a half ago. And so we didn't have the staff we knew what needed to be done. We just didn't have the money to hire people. Not only that, we could link up with folks and we could have a big coalition, but we didn't have the time, energy, money to engage it and make it effective. We need to train people, right? It's not, you could be a civics teacher in your classroom, doesn't mean that you run a campaign, right? So there's actual training that needs to occur to do that. And then there is communication strategy. You need to build up and raise your level of communication. And then you need to raise your PR game. So this is, what I've learned is it's not simple. There's not one solution. There's not one thing to do, but it can be done incrementally over time. You need to be in this for the long game. This is really, if people think that CSD will solve the problem, it won't. It will be an anchor for an increasing commitment over time, right? And I think that you're looking at generational shifts, 10 years, 15 years, 25 years, to invest in young people and give them the capacity that they can then understand how the system works and then begin to advocate for themselves or to participate even, forget about advocacy, just participate in the system. Because frankly, that's one of our biggest problems, right? We need people to come into this and care. And that's why we use the word reflective patriotism, because we want folks and students to be attached to this country and who want to defend it and want to reflect on it where we've done well, where we haven't done well. And that's what I've learned. It's not easy, it's hard, but it can go over time. If you have this long-term vision, you're gonna get there.
Yeah, it's interesting that you say that, because I really like this notion of reflective patriotism, but it feels like there's a lot of us that aren't willing to reflect.
To be fair, there's some people who don't want to use the word patriotism either. So, it's all over the place. So, but I do think that reflection is a really important part, right? Not only reflection, but connecting dots. Important to know that, there are 3 branches of the government. So that's great, the minimum, but you do need to know how they interact over time, right. And how they've changed in power structures and what that means for people, and particularly at the local level, right? So I think what's happening overall is that a lot of our politics is coming back to the local, the state, and that is a place where people can have direct influence. Doesn't take that much, right? So I think that that's the reflection about people are all focused on DC, focused on this community,
Right, correct.
on the state,
Correct.
focus on how you can make a difference. It doesn't even need to be partisan issues. And that I think is also a mind shift that needs to happen in communities and in organizations. State work's really important.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. What about, social media is playing such a significant role in much of everything that we do. And I'm really curious. I mean, we're doing hashtags, for the conference, right? And I'm really curious to hear you talk about how social media has influenced or played a part in some of the trials or tribulations or even accomplishments for iCivics, because it does have such a influence on how we're communicating today.
Yeah, to be honest, as iCivics and fostering a community, that's important. I find the world of social media to be unhelpful for what I want to do. So when you're focused on getting results, that is not where my focus is. That is not. We certainly have a big social media presence as iCivics, but if you want to attribute success of Civics Now or anything like that, it's not social media at all.
Yeah, and I appreciate hearing that because I do think we see this so much as the wave of the future and what's going to help us solve so many of our challenges, when in fact, I think social media is hindering some of the work that we're trying to resolve for our society right now, because it does limit the inability for people to actually engage and talk to each other.
I also think it limits, I mean, this is not new, but there's nuance here that gets lost. And I think at this stage in our very diverse democracy, which is what, the diversity is increasing, there's no doubt about that. And that requires a conversation about, all of this nuance, right? And we lose that, and that's part of the problem. And I think that, people talking to other people who disagree with them, that's where the solution is.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's where we learn the most about ourselves and others, right? When we're having those types of conversations, because if we're only talking in the silos, there's very little that we get from the experience, except, those voices that are echoing and giving us the same information about ourselves that we feel like we're right about. But it's only the learning process is happening when we get stretched and we have to hear someone's countering perspective that offers us a new way of looking at something. So I completely agree with you. I recognize the significance of social media and so much of what we do, that I do think it's important for us to at least raise and say, what role does it play? But at the end of the day, certainly as a higher ed educator, I would say to you that I find it to add to much of what has created the disinformation, but also the unwillingness to engage and talk to each other. So I appreciate your perspective on that. So what else can you tell us about the bill that will help us at that state level that you talked about? Because I do think, so much about K-12 education in this country, we talk about these big bills that come out, No Child Left Behind. We've got all of these moments where we're going to solve public education by creating a federal law that of course has to trickle down to states. And so I'm really curious what your perspective is on what happens with this bill upon its success when it then needs to permeate to the 50 states.
Yeah, so this bill is really a funding bill, right? It is about funding state work. So the bill is really you and educators making it happen. So this only creates the space for that. So it's not, I think what needs to happen is that we need to invest in the community. We need to invest in organizations that have capacity to scale and provide resources in all of the states. So this is a federalist bill. It's going to be different in a state like Oklahoma than it'll be in a state like Massachusetts, where I live, and that's fine. And we need to make sure that there are resources available to actually get us on this road once there's funding to do so. So instead of having a test like the Common Core or some all these things that have occurred, that is not what we're proposing. We're just proposing to invest in the capacity of educators to do the right thing, right? So that's really what the values that animates this bill, and it's $1 billion a year. So it would create some significant capacity in the states.
Okay. Other thoughts that you'd like to share with us that needs to help us level up? Because this, I mean, the message that you've given us is this bill is providing us the framework, but really the work and effort and energy is happening once it's passed and once states have the opportunity to do something about it. So what are we doing to level up? What are you asking us to do?
Well, I would say, please support the bill because you're in it and it would be a good thing for you. I think particularly for educators that are teaching media literacy, it gives you a space and the resources and the training that you want to have, and mostly the commitment of your administrators. We've heard that from a lot of social studies educators that say, I'm doing it, but nobody is around to help me, right? And there's not the ongoing support. The other thing I want to say is that it's a tough time. It's a tough time for our country. It's a tough time, even harder, I think, for educators. And I want you to have hope. I want you to know that it's hard and keep doing the work to advocate for what is right. And I can't share enough. There is no other choice, right? It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. If we don't believe in our constitutional democracy, it will fall. So we all need to lock arms and say, we stand for this American self-government democracy. We need to be there together. And that's a commitment we have to make no matter how hard it is, no matter how hard it is. And I know what I'm asking is a lot, and I know it's really tough on a daily basis, but I still have a lot of hope. I still believe, and I hope that everybody else does too.
Yeah, Louise, and because of this being your work, I want you to have the opportunity to state this, but we do have a question asking to give the full name of the federal bill again, please.
It's the Civics Secures Democracy Act. It was just reintroduced by Senator Coons, Cornyn, Cassidy, Inhofe, and many others in the Senate. We hope it will be taken up in the fall. And please, if you want to get involved with advocacy on that, go to the Civics Now, civicnow.org, and please join us. There are advocacy tools. There's a map of states as to what kind of civic education legislation or situation is in your state. And there is a way to get involved in advocating for the Civics Secure Democracy Act.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. Thank you so much for taking the time to promote this great work. I mean, these are the type of bills that I know we are looking to see greater support of, because we know that in order for democracy to exist, the generations behind us, especially our children, need to know how to actually engage with the government and what the structure of the government looks like. I'm always amazed at when I talk to my students who are immigrants, who know so much more about the civic structure of this country and how our government functions and runs by those who actually were born and raised here. And so I think this is a great opportunity for us to reintroduce the value of understanding the makeup of our government and how we are the ones that really do make the difference by being fully engaged.
Kimberly, it was a pleasure to talk to you. And yeah, that's right. When asked, we are it. There's nobody else. Don't look around. You're it. So
thank you so much, Louise.
Thank you. Pleasure.
Well, and let me echo my thanks, Louise, and to you, Kimberly, for facilitating. This was a fantastic conversation, and on behalf of Namely, I can say we are so thrilled to be partnering with iCivics and others in promoting this kind of investment in civic learning. It's so critical to our nation. And as a dad, I can say it's critical to the future of my children. So thank you so much for this work.
Thank you.
So we're going to wrap up now. And once again, I have some housekeeping duties. And this time I'll try my best to get the right slide as I share my screen. And here it is. Don't go away, take a short 15-minute break. But coming up is our evening session with Futuro Media, where they're going to be sharing some of their great work. And also they're going to be in conversation with some of the great young journalists from the PBS NewsHour. So that starts at 6 o'clock, and be sure to join that. I think it's going to be fantastic. Then have a restful evening and come back with us tomorrow. And Saturday, our program starts at 11 a.m. And there's a whole host of sessions to dig into. So we look forward to seeing you there. The other bit of business that I just wanted to check in on is take tonight to look at the Zoom platform again, because it's your chance to both visit the lobby chat and to share comments with everyone attending. You can communicate via that chat, and also visit the expo. It's a great place to see the work of your peers and to interact there. That expo is open every day through Sunday, so please take a chance to look at that. Like good educators, we're evaluating this conference. We're trying to make both this one and future conferences better. And so we're asking for your feedback in real time. You don't need to wait till the end to give us feedback. Here are some QR codes that you can use right now to give us feedback on what we're doing. And please share your perspectives and help us with this conference and future ones. And with that, I'm going to thank everyone and give you just a little time to get a break. And we'll see you very soon in the next session. Thanks so much.